Hey, Casibang's crew, welcome back. This is video number 3 in Unit 9, our social psychology unit. This video is part 1 of social influence. So first we're going to start off and talk about different things, different concepts that happen in groups. Okay, how groups can affect our behavior. And again, this is a very vocab heavy kind of unit. So if you have the vocab, if you can think of examples, then you're going to be just fine with this part of the unit. So the first term is social facilitation. So social facilitation is something that I always think of in terms of sports. Okay, that's why I have this basketball picture here. So your performance improves on simple or well-learned tasks in the presence of others. So that's why I always think of sports, okay? Teams play much better when they're playing in front of their home audience. And this has been proven time and time again, okay? They've taken football scores, they've taken professional basketball. You just play better when you are playing for an audience. And that's why COVID, especially COVID in the beginning when there was no one in the stands, it was very difficult for our professional and amateur sports. Social loafing. Social loafing is something that I am quite sure you have all experienced before. Think of group projects. So social loafing is the tendency for people in a group to exert less effort when pooling their efforts toward attaining a common goal than when they were originally being held accountable. So just think of the group project. Okay, the more people that you have in your group, the more you have one or two people that don't really contribute. They don't really do anything. They're just kind of riding everyone's coattails to get that grade. So I said, I know you've experienced that one. De-individuation. So de-individuation is when group participation makes people both aroused and anonymous. And this makes people do things that they wouldn't normally have done. So again, my examples are rioting and looting. Okay, here's an example of what happened in January. Looting and rioting, okay, they get caught up in the moment or they get caught up in the crowd and they participate and do things that might be illegal that they would have never thought or guessed that they would have ever done before. Group polarization happens when the beliefs that we bring into a group grow stronger as we discuss them with other like-minded people. So let's just take the election, for example. So let's say that you believe you are a Democrat and you believed in Joe Biden. And you get together with a group of people, but everyone in that group is a supporter of Joe Biden as well. So now your beliefs just get even stronger as you talk with more like-minded people. Okay, that's group polarization. And then the last one here is group think. And this can be a little bit of a dangerous thing. So groupthink occurs when the desire for harmony in decision-making groups overrides a realistic appraisal of alternatives. Okay, so what this means is that you have a group of people together. Let's say it's the cabinet for the president. Okay. And everyone wants there to be a harmony amongst all of those people. They want to keep goodwill and good feelings and like-mindedness together, so much so that even if you have a differing opinion or you have differing information, that is even factual information, you may not speak up because that desire for harmony is stronger than you speaking up. And again, this can be dangerous because someone could have important information that they're not sharing that could sway the decision of the group. Last thing on here is social script. Okay, the social script, this is cultural. Okay, culturally provided mental files for how to act. Okay, so cultural norms or cultural rules here. Okay, a social trap. Okay, we harm our collective well-being by pursuing our own personal interests. So we could really use mask wearing in our COVID pandemic society right now as a social trap. Okay, so we harm our collective well-being by pursuing our own interest. So let's just say that my interest is I don't want to wear masks. I think it's an infringement on my own personal rights. So I don't wear a mask when I go out in public, when I go to the grocery store, when I'm interacting with other people. And because I don't wear a mask, I spread COVID to 10 people. And then they therefore spread it to another 10 people each. And now we're up to, 100 people, and it just continues spreading and spreading and spreading. Okay, that's the social trap. Cooperation. Okay, we talk about superordinate goals. Okay, superordinate goals are shared goals that override the differences among people and require cooperation. And again, sports are a really good example of the superordinate goals. Okay, you may not love everyone on your team. You may not agree with everyone on your team, but you do have one ultimate goal, and that is to win the game or get to the finals or to win that state championship. So that goal overrides all of your little differences. Norm of reciprocity. Okay, the norm of reciprocity says that people will respond favorably to each other by returning benefits for benefits and responding with indifference or hostility to harms. So basically what it's saying is I give you something or help you in some way, you are obliged to return the favor at some point. So it's like a quid pro quo. Like if I do something for you, you need to do something for me. And it also works in the negative. If you harm me in some way, then I am free to harm you back. Okay, that's that norm of reciprocity. Okay, so the second part of today's video, we're going to talk about racial bias, prejudice, discrimination. Okay, so prejudice is an unjustifiable, usually negative, attitude. Please underline that word attitude or highlight it toward a group and its members. Okay, prejudice is often directed toward different cultural, ethnic, or gender groups. It is really important that you remember that prejudice is the attitude, because we're going to have a confusing pair that's going to come up in a second. And I want you to be able to decipher the difference between the two. Okay, so a couple components of prejudice here. Beliefs, which include stereotypes, emotions, and then the predisposition to act. All right, so racial and gender prejudice. Americans today express much less racial or gender prejudice, but prejudice still exists. And this chart here kind of shows you, the question was, would you vote for a woman president here? Okay, so you see back in 1936, low numbers, they're kind of slowly climbing, and then they really start climbing, okay? And then this question here, do whites have a right to keep minorities out of their neighborhoods? Again, we have kind of a high number here back in the 1960s, and it starts to lower. We see a few spikes, and it keeps lowering and lowering and lowering. Unfortunately, this information was from 1996, and I really wonder if in our current climate, if we would see a couple of these spikes happening. I feel like in our current climate, a lot of racial and gender prejudice has kind of come to the forefront a little bit as it's become a little bit more, made a little bit more normal by some people. All right, a stereotype is a generalization about a social group. Super easy, a generalization about a social group. And I always love this particular meme. Be mindful about stereotypes. Only one of them is a convicted felon, which of course is our white woman here, okay? This is a stereotyping example, and I want you to just think about it and think of what your answer is. Write your first answer down into your notes. A father and his son are in a car accident. The father dies at the scene, and the son, badly injured, is rushed to the hospital. In the operating room, the surgeon looks at the boy and says, "I can't operate on this boy. He is my son. How can this be?" Okay, write your answer down. All right, so discrimination. Here is the second part of our confusing pair between prejudice and between discrimination. Discrimination is unjustifiable negative behavior toward a group and its members. So prejudice is the attitude, discrimination is the actual behavior. All right, so we have some social roots of prejudice. So answers the question, why are there prejudice out there? So there's a couple of social roots here. Social inequalities, social divisions, and emotional scapegoating. We're going to talk about those. So social divisions, this us versus them kind of idea. So we have in-group. These are the people with whom one shares a common identity. Okay, this could be your gender, as in my in-group is female. It could be your race, okay? My in-group is Caucasian. It could be your nationality, okay? Out-group are those perceived as different from your in-group. So it's the others, okay? And then this idea of in-group bias is the tendency to favor your own group. Okay? That's pretty normal. Okay, but we do have to fight at that sometimes. The scapegoat theory. Okay, scapegoat theory says that prejudice provides an outlet for anger by providing someone to blame. So think back to when you learned world history or when you learned U.S. history and we were talking about the Holocaust. Okay, the Germans used the Jewish people as scapegoats. They were in a bad place in their life and they needed someone to blame. And Hitler gave them an entire group of people to blame. Okay, that's the scapegoat theory. After 9/11, many people lashed out against innocent Arab Americans, okay? Because again, we had a national tragedy on 9/11 and we wanted to blame somebody. The cognitive roots of prejudice. So we judge frequency by things that readily come to mind, okay? So this idea of vivid cases. And we talked about this already when we talked about heuristics back in the cognitive unit. Vivid cases such as 9/11 attacks, okay? Terrorists can feed stereotypes or prejudice. So this kind of shows you these are all of the people that believe in Islam. And this is the very small little bit of them that are terrorists, okay? So not all people that are Muslim are terrorists, okay? This idea of the just world phenomenon. So this is the tendency of people to believe that the world is a just place and that people get what they deserve and deserve what they get. Okay, and we're going to do an activity with this in class tomorrow. All right, so that is it for today's video. Please make sure you write down any of your questions and come into class with them. We will be doing some work with some of the vocab words to make sure that you really understand them and can come up with examples for them as well. See you tomorrow. Bye.